The views and opinions expressed on this show belong solely to the hosts and their guests and do not reflect the views of any on-site institutions unless explicitly stated.
What's up, everybody? My name is Steve Vanderwall.
And I'm Justin Klosser,
and we're your hosts of Cannabis Cum Laude, a podcast devoted entirely to cannabis. We're going to talk cultivation, business, medicine, politics, culture, advocacy, and everything in between.
The cannabis industry is complicated. It's robust. It has a lot of moving parts, and it's our job to help you understand it just a little bit better. So tune in every week for a brand new episode. And if you have a question that you'd like answered on the show, send it on over to questions@cannabiscumlaude.com. Thanks. Enjoy the show.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to part 2 of this week's episode of Cannabis Cum Laude. We're talking about Governor Hochul's newest appointees to the Office of Cannabis Management and the Cannabis Control Board. Our last episode, we kind of broke down why this is important, what these boards are responsible for, and why it would be in Governor Hochul's best interest to keep this expeditious process going. In this segment, we're going to dive into the appointees themselves. Tremaine Wright of the Cannabis Control Board, she's the chair of the CCB, and Christopher Alexander, the chair of the Office of Cannabis Management, who I don't remember meeting him, but all the pictures, I see a ton of pictures of him in like Smart Start rallies, which back in the Rock Normal days, I was at pretty much all of them. We were there together, and we must have been rubbing elbows at some time. But Christopher Alexander is, he previously worked for New York's Democratic Party. He was a legislative aide to Congress and importantly, a policy coordinator for the Drug Policy Alliance. Now, those of you who don't know that, the Drug Policy Alliance, which at the time was really spearheaded by Cassandra Frederick and Melissa Moore, the executive director and associate director, I forgot what their titles are, but they were the head honchos there. They were really amongst the lead architects of the push for the MRTA and the coinciding Smart Start coalition. So it makes a lot of sense that Chris Alexander was nominated for this position, appointed for this position, because DPA was a massive, massively important driving factor to getting this, the MRTA passed. They're great organizers. We worked really close with them at Rock Normal. And he was a policy coordinator for DPA. He was also counsel to the New York State Senate, where he managed the work of several committees providing oversight over the affairs of New York City and over New York State's criminal justice system. And he was one of the lead drafters of the MRTA. He's also works in a big cannabis company. I want to double check the name.
Pretty sure it's Village or Ville LLC.
Yeah, he's the government relations and policy manager at Ville LLC, which is a vertically integrated cannabis company in Canada.
Which is interesting for a couple of reasons, right? For my first thought is it's in Canada. That's interesting. But the fact that he is a part of an organization that does make money from cannabis makes it an interesting pick to me. I don't know that I disagree with it because he's making money from external cannabis.
Yeah.
He's not necessarily profiting from the New York market, but it's still an interesting perspective, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense to have somebody who understands the industry and policy. You know, he's doing government relations and policy work for a vertically integrated cannabis company. He couldn't do that in New York because it would be a conflict of interest, and he really couldn't do that in any surrounding states because I also believe it would be a conflict of interest, less than if he worked in New York. So I think it's, you don't want some schmo off the streets who doesn't know the difference or know anything about cannabis, right? So somebody who has worked in there, he's got corporate or, business experience, policy experience. Is he probably still going to make some money from cannabis? Sure, as he should. But the reality is, if somebody came to me and said, we want you to sit on the control board, but you have to divest all your business endeavors. No, thank you. Never in a million years would I leave. You're not making that good of money in New York State government. Yeah, maybe you'd have a little power and you'd have some pull. But
the next thing you know, we're going to have a green Silk Road from Ontario to
probably
from Toronto to Buffalo.
Yeah, I mean, it's I don't know. I think he's a good pick. I think he's got experience. My one thing, and I'm looking up Ville LLC right now. I don't see a ton of information on this company, so I'm not going to really dive in. But what I do know is that it is a vertically integrated cannabis company, which I find and I don't know how big it is. It could be craft. But anytime I hear vertical integration, that was what the MRTA was designed to prevent, was vertical integration. These big cannabis companies coming in, owning the entire supply chain and crushing small businesses because of their economies of scale. Now, vertical integration is allowed if you have a craft or a micro license. I don't know if Ville is a micro license. I'm not sure. I would venture to say no. But either way, the point is, he's got
still does provide perspective on how they could formulate the laws for the craft micro licenses, though, right?
Certainly.
Because if you're doing it at scale, a lot of times it's easier to take scale and bring it down than it is to take a smaller thing and bring it up, right, and make it. So at scale, right? It's like it's easier to make something smaller than it is bigger, I think, in my opinion. Like, you can take big practices and shrink them, but when you take small practices that are very intricate and whatever and try to make them on bigger scales, it's much harder to succeed. So I do still think that perspective will be valuable for formulating that part of the licenses.
Yeah, and and I support vertical integration, right? I understand why. I'm glad that it's banned, because the Cannabis Gross and Tilrays of the world would come in, get a license, and they would have a huge advantage. But the reality is that you cannot grow gas at that big of scale. You can't. And all these products, there's a reason why, people like Seth Rogen, who had partnership with Cannabis Growth, dropped them, is because big cannabis products are shit. We know that, right? You can't possibly, put all the best nutrients in them and do all the best plant, training and crop steering and all these things that we talk about on a regular basis, because there's too many goddamn plants. And it costs, that's just the reality.
Yeah, employees cost a lot. And so do inputs.
Inputs cost a lot. Labor costs a lot. Utilities cost a lot.
That's going to happen regardless of whether you're doing these other practices or not. It might even be beneficial to offset that cost or to add to that cost a little bit more with a little extra labor. So if you're getting enough of a yield in return, right? But a lot of these practices are, even if you're getting a few grams across a couple thousand plants, that's a lot, right? They might be well worth it. I don't know.
I'd be curious of what is it worth if you're running even 50,000 square foot is modest, which I think is crazy. Let's say you run an 80,000 square foot facility, which is pretty solid. What are the economics of topping,
right,
or, super cropping or lollipopping or whatever,
LST or any of that. Yeah.
Exactly. Whatever. Or are these guys, running Power SI and all these expensive nutrients? Probably not. They're probably run basic general hydroponics crap. And
at a commercial scale, though, you have access to companies to where you can just mix your own, right? You can get all these salts. Maybe that's not easy, but it's definitely economical, right? To get all the different salts, have your formulation figured out that you can. It's not hard. It's not hard to get something that's going to give you success, right? I've done it, and the first time I did it, I grew bangers, right? Just mixing all the salts on my own, right?
It's super easy.
There was 6 different variations of those, and they all did pretty well, And so, you're not gonna kill it. You're not gonna ruin it if you do enough research ahead of time, but then you can tweak it from there and get it dialed in per specific nutrient, per cultivar, right? Maybe not, that's getting crazy, but at least per nutrient across the board, get it easy. You have it nice mixed in, right? All of this stuff, if you're growing salts, obviously. Yeah. But we're getting way off track.
Well, it's interesting. If you're using something like a dosatron or something, that stuff all becomes very feasible. The short of it is that Largely vertical integrated this company is going to, or this industry is going to be one with top tier cannabis and top tier cannabis flower. And not a lot of these big companies are growing gas. It's just because they're at scale. They're growing mid-grade cannabis. They're probably doing it with minimum, medium to low quality inputs, very little to no plant training or anything like that. Like, who knows? But I think I think vertical integration works well on a small scale. And I think if you have a small system, maybe you optimize a 1,000 square foot grow room. Okay, maybe instead of going to a 2,000 or 3,000 square foot growing, you just build another 1,000 square foot grow room and another, instead of having 100,000 square feet of open space, which is crazy. Anyway, I digress. But yeah, we're talking politics today. Forgot.
Yeah. Oops. Can you tell we like to talk about cultivation, people? Anyway, so getting back on course, I do think that Chris is going to be a good resource overall, right? I think he's probably going to do a great job. All of the people that I've heard talking about and reacting to this situation, everything seems positive. He was a likely pick, according to one source, that to be the social equity director previously when Cuomo was still in office, kind of, right? That he was getting projected that this guy might be the social equity director. He's super focused on social equity, the war on drugs. And like Steve was saying before, these are the people that we need in place if we do really want to do social equity proper justice in the rollout of this program. So then moving into the CCB, we have the nominee of Tremaine Wright, who is going to be the chair. She is a former member of the state assembly for the 56th district of Brooklyn, New York. She's also the director of DFS statewide office of financial inclusion and empowerment. She was an attorney, an entrepreneur, and even a small business owner. She owned Common Grounds, a neighborhood coffee house, from 2006 to 2015. She also served as the chair of the New York State Black, Puerto Rican, Hispanic, and Asian Legislative Caucus, which I believe Jeremy Cooney also served on that. And she served as the chair of the Assembly Subcommittee on Foster Care and the chairperson of Community Board 3 for 13 years. She's a graduate of Duke and the University of Chicago Law School.
Sharp cookie.
Right. Long list of accolades, all of which are based around just helping community members in general. I personally think fantastic choice to be put into office. I can't find anything that I dislike.
Yeah, I mean, we all know the war on drugs was very real and very prominent and really shattered Black communities, and especially in New York City. It only makes sense, in my opinion, that you choose members who are from New York City, who were from neighborhoods who were targeted by the war on drugs, who likely had some, if they weren't personally, had some family or friend or close people directly impacted by the war on drugs.
I mean, that's really where the hardest stop and frisk was, which was really unconstitutional anyway, we don't need to get into that part of things, but
yeah, it was bullshit. I mean, it was entrapment. And I think it only makes sense that folks who lived and breathed it in those communities, kind of have the final say. And I'm super, super happy for that. Both of these are the picks. I'm really excited.
Me as well. Yeah, I mean, like we said before, people, these are the tipping point, right? This is what needed to happen in order for us to get the rest of the people. Remember, these boards are both supposed to be, both are supposed to be 5 people boards. Am I correct? I might be wrong now. I know the OCM is supposed to be a 5-person board. I can't remember if I found anything about the amount of people who will be on the CCB, because they are able to add the directors and other employees and stuff. So that could end up getting quite large, like we said before.
Yeah, I'm not sure. We'll look into it. All people really need to know is that it's a multi-member board, and we still have more picks to go. But these were the crucial picks that needed to happen, and now we should start to see the Senate or the legislative picks, right? I think the Assembly and the Senate each gets to have their picks.
Yep.
And we'll see.
Oh, that's what it was. The governor for the OCM had 3 picks for the board, and each house get the House and the Senate each get one. Right.
Okay.
Or the Assembly, the House. Not talking about the feds here. Same thing.
Same thing. The House.
You guys see that Steve is the political strong suit here. Obviously, I like to play with plants.
Well, you kind of have the 3 branches, right? You have your executive branch, right? The president, the governor, the mayor, right? Those are kind of the executive, and then your Senate would be your Senate, your state Senate, and I don't actually know who that would be for like a local or municipality government, because a city council will be more like the state legislature. It would be more like the assembly, right? The assembly is to the at the state level is to the House of Representatives at the federal level.
Right. That's, yeah. Okay, so I did have it right. I just mixed up my words there. What are you gonna do?
I tell you right now, if anybody wants to, like, still to this day, I don't know how many years it's been, the best politics 101 resource out there to understand how the 3 branches of government work, how bills get passed, is the Schoolhouse Rock. I'm just a bill. Sitting on Capitol Hill, baby. That shit is still relevant. My
Ramessin in home economics.
Yeah.
right. I feel like that's the class that we watched it in. Maybe not.
I think pig economics, because home ec was like sewing and baking cookies and shit.
Okay, yeah. Same classroom for me, anyway.
Miss Skinner or Miss Monopoly?
Oh man, I don't remember. Come on, I don't remember what I ate for breakfast this morning, bro.
I know. So yeah, long story short, the good news is
we're on the way.
It's and I think people, this is not the time, you should already have been preparing. But words of wisdom to people out there is figuring out what you want to do, what type of license you're going to go for. You should probably start an LLC right now. You should probably you should figure out how to make it a minority owned or women owned or veteran owned business that's 51% or more.
Or current farm.
Or a distressed farmer. If you check any of those boxes, or you want to start a business and you have a wife or a sister or a mother,
somebody you trust enough to be a business partner.
It is the reality of the situation, people. It is what it is. But you should start figuring out your LLC. You should figure out who's going to be those members. Start looking at real estate. If you got it, great. If not, make sure it's, not too close within a school or a church, especially if you're going to do retail or cultivation. And, make sure you get your state tax authority, your certificate of good standing with the state. Do all the things so that when the time comes, they're like, oh, wow, you're a real business. You're a minority-owned business.
You're ready to go.
That would be, because if you wait for the licenses to come out to start all these things, you're going to be too late. I promise you that. You will be too late.
And if you're ancillary, start reaching out to make connections with these people who are starting businesses, because they're doing it now, or at least they should be, right? And so if you want to get in on the ground floor, like HVAC or anything of that nature, where you're hoping to reap some benefits without necessarily needing a license, you should, like I said, make these connections now, right? Anything of that nature. I think that's probably a good place to call it for today.
Yeah. I'd like to quickly, so I wasn't here last week.
Yep.
You knocked it out of the park. That was a great episode.
Thanks, brother.
Heavy at times. But anytime you can sit down and talk with vets about their experiences in cannabis, and it's very powerful, and it's really, it's kind of one of those experiences. And I've had a couple of them where it's just like, okay, this is some magic shit. There's a reason that this plant brings these, people like that together. So it was an excellent episode. But I wasn't here is because I was visiting my buddy Dylan in Maine, and Dylan is the owner and operator of East Coast Cure in Bangor. He is a 26-year-old cultivator who started cultivating when he was 24. He runs right now a 20,000 square foot facility that he grows some serious gas. I mean, he is an incredible grower, super knowledgeable, 26 years old. He also owns Mainstrain, which is an equipment and nutrients distribution company. I just want to give a quick shout out to him. Thank you for having me. I love the tour. I love your product. When this episode concludes, we're going to go smoke some of his Panic out of 10. I appreciate you having me. I think you're great. Thank you. And I also want to give an extra special shout out to my boy, Main Mike, who's on Instagram as Main Mike FCC. He is my cultivation mentor. He is my very good friend. He is one of the most talented and knowledgeable cultivators that I've ever met. He taught me everything that I know. And I'm very appreciative of him. Main Mike, if you're listening, thank you, brother. Give this guy a follow. He knows cannabis. This guy knows how to grow, and he knows how to grow at scale. It's going to be super, super successful in the market. So thank you again for everything you've done for me recently. I really appreciate you.
Cool. Thank you, everybody. And we're going to wrap it there, but don't forget to elevate your state of mind.
See you next week.
Thanks to our friends here at Rockbox Recording and Production in Rochester, New York. They are a full professional podcast and video studio designed by a radio guy for podcasters. Audio, video, voiceovers, editing, whatever. Mouth off at rockbox.com.
You can follow Cannabis Cum Laude on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Cannabuzz. Type Cannabis Cum Laude into your search bar and you should be able to find us, but the links will also be posted in the episode notes as well. If you want to help support the show, head on over to Patreon, and that will ensure that we're able to keep the best quality sound and video coming to you on a regular basis. And if you liked what you heard today, please don't forget to rate and review the show.